Hello, my name is Nikolai Steiner. Welcome to this introduction to literature searching. Literature searching has different components from defining your topic, what do you want to know about, and where do you find the actual literature which says something about this subject. Then it's about building lists of this literature, finding out what is out there, and finally, it's about retrieving the actual literature, whether in digital form or physically. Enjoy. This presentation has four sections. First, I will briefly go over the process of literature searching. Then I will discuss three questions. First, what do I want to know? How do I find relevant references? And finally, how do I retrieve the actual resources? The process of literature searching really is a four-step process. First, you need to isolate your topic. What is it that you actually want to know something about? And once you're more or less clear about that, the second step is to perform the actual literature search. Then, once you have a bunch of results from your literature search, you want to build a weighed literature list saying which are the items I want or need the most and which items are less important. And finally, once you've built this weighed literature list, you want to retrieve the actual literature, the books, the articles, the texts that you want to get your hands on in order to be able to read them. The question of what do I want to know may be considered from different perspectives. And in this context, it's interesting to consider that there are different kinds of information. Like in architecture and design, you may want to know something about actual works of architecture, buildings, urban spaces, or even artifacts. It could also be that you want to know something about a particular architectural project, whether it was actually realized or not. You may want to know something about a specific person, whether this is an architect or an architectural thinker, for instance. And finally, you may also be interested in particular subjects or concepts. For works, you may ask yourself, where is it? If it's something that's designed and constructed, it does exist somewhere in the world, and you may find out where that is. You may also be interested in knowing when it was built, the year of construction, or a period of construction for larger works, which may be constructed over a considerable span of time. Obviously, you may also be interested in who designed it. Sometimes it's one architect, sometimes it's an architectural company, or sometimes it's even a host of different architects or design companies. As an example, as shown here on the right, we could give the Hampstead Garden Suburb, which is associated with the Garden City movement, which in turn is associated with Ebenezer Howard. For this particular work, you can find out that it's constructed in Great Britain, in North London, that it's constructed in the early 1900s, and that it's been designed by the architect-engineer partners Unwin and Parker. For projects, you may ask yourself, who designed it? What type of project is it? Sometimes it's a building design, sometimes it's a garden design, or as in this case here, a park design. But it could also be projects of a more discursive nature, abstract nature, which doesn't apply to any specific type of architectural design. And you may again ask when it was made. And where it has been published. Obviously, if it hasn't been built, you can't find a geographic location for it, but the way the world will know about projects that were not realized typically is that they have been published in some kind of magazine or in another form. And again, here's an example. The Parc de la Villette in north-east Paris, shown on the right. This particular proposal was designed by Swiss-American architect Bernard Tschumi. It's an example of a deconstructionist park design, and it was designed and published in the late 1980s. And the type in this case is both an architectural and a landscape design. So, if we go over the question of subjects or concepts, then what you want to know might be who is associated with this particular subject or concept. Some people obviously wrote about it or developed it so that it even exists in the world. So you want to know who these people are. You also want to know in time, when was the subject or the concept developed, when was it particularly influential, etc. You may also want to know, in as far as the concept was actually applied in an actual design, you want to know where it has been applied or represented. And as an example, I give here new urbanism. And some of the important people associated with the concept of new urbanism are American architects and writers Peter Calthorpe and Duane Plater Syberg. The concept was particularly a thing in the 1990s. And one concrete example, as shown here on the right, is the town of Seaside in Florida. As an example. There are many more, of course. Finally, for persons, you want to know what are the works of this particular person. They may be physical, like architectural artifacts, or it may be theories, or it may be important teachings or research and whatever. So, you also may want to know, is this a contemporary person or historic person? Is the person alive? And you want to know what subjects or concepts this person is associated with. And here as an example, you may take the Italian architect Aldo Rossi, who was on the one hand practicing architect. He designed the Galleratese housing in Milan, shown here on the right. But he was also an architectural theorist, and most notably known for the book The Architecture of the City, or L'Architettura della Città, which was quite influential. And he was alive from 1931 to 1997. And finally, he's apart from his actual works, his architectural practice, he's associated with architectural theory and with neo-rationalism more specifically. So, once you know what you know, the question is, where do I find relevant references on this topic? And here it's important to realize that there are different types of resources. If you're totally unfamiliar with the concept, with your topic, the first place you want to look may be in encyclopedias like Wikipedia and other encyclopedias, just to get a definition of the concept. What is, say, neo-rationalism, or who is Aldo Rossi? Obviously, there are also books. Books may be academic books written by academics, research-based books on specific topics, but they may also be books for the general public, like coffee table books or other books of a more sort of general nature. Second, You may find relevant information about your topic in journal articles. We normally distinguish between magazines, which are like periodicals for the practicing audience of a particular profession, like architectural magazines, of which there are plenty, and then academic or scientific journals, which publishes research work done by researchers like architectural researchers in our field. You may also want to get your hands on images. Obviously, in a visual discipline like architecture and design, you may only understand your topic from images, so images may be an important resource for you. And finally, you may want to get your hands on different sorts of documents. If you do a case study, these may be planning documents or any type of archival documents that may be relevant to you in one form or another. So, once you have an idea about what the different resources which are available to you they are, you may want to look in different places for different resources. And obviously, you have library indexes. Every library has an index of all its holdings, which you can use and look up and see what's in the particular library. Many of these are these days typically much broader in the sense that you may look up if the book exists at all in the world, even if it's not in your local library. So, library indexes is a very good entry point for finding out about relevant books on your topic. On a more specific level, there are a number of different article indexes out there, which in a more detailed form than library indexes will give you information about individual articles in journals and magazines in your particular field. So article indexes are better, in fact, for finding articles on your subject than are library indexes, which may not be specific on an article per article basis. Something which is typically overlooked by many is the fact that there are many literature lists out there, particularly in our online world today. Literature lists are typically built by educators for courses. So for different courses on various topics, students will be presented with literature lists on this particular topic. And you may have literature lists from the courses you've been following yourself, but there's also a lot of literature lists available online which you can retrieve. So this obviously represents a shortcut to retrieving or finding out about specific resources because someone else already did the work for you. But be aware that literature lists may be more general or more specific in a slightly different direction than the one that you're looking for. So take them as entry points, starting points to acquaint yourself with your topic. And also you may be lucky that they're spot on with regard to your particular topic. Lastly, of course, there's always the more general search engines like Google and other search engines. The problem with search engines is that they will return whatever is out there. So you may have to filter through a lot of irrelevant information before you actually get to something that you can actually use to build your literature list. So let's take a look at library indexes. Your local library will have one. This one shows the Aalborg University Library library index, and they're more or less the same. It's like a search engine. You enter a search term and you will get a result. So if you enter the search term, you will get a list of so many books, sometimes a mix of books and articles, depending on the type of library index that you're working with. And then you can start filter through the results. What you typically will have, if you click on a result, you will get like an expanded view with an annotation with a brief description of what the book is about. This may be a helpful clue in order for you to judge, not just from the author and the title, whether the book might be relevant to you, but also from this brief description of the content. So a book which, from the title, or because the author is someone whom you know is otherwise associated with your topic, may seem interesting. Once you read the annotation, you may realize, well, oh, actually, it's about something else. So it's not, it's no bother to try to get hold on the book. Yeah, you may also have, as I said, annotated journal titles, and to give some, but beware here that journal titles is different from article titles. Journal would just say there's this journal on architecture which may contain articles of this and this and this and that, but that doesn't help you much in order to find out in which volume of which issue of the journal that there may be an article which is relevant to you, because journals can be even there if they're on a specific topic, which they generally are. They can still be very broad and have hold articles of about something that's completely irrelevant to you. Let's list some examples. From a Danish perspective, you will always have the local public libraries. They will have library indexes. You will have the National Library, the Royal Library, so-called in Denmark. Or you may use your local university library. These library indexes are slightly different, obviously, because the public libraries will have holdings of basically anything, also fiction and handbooks and stuff, whereas the university libraries will be focused on research and academic literature. And internationally, you can basically you can look up use the index of any university library in the world. Just beware that just because the book is in, say, the Columbia University libraries doesn't mean that you will find it also in your local university library. So, article indexes, as mentioned, are more specific. They will return lists of article titles, which again will be annotated. So again, if you enter your search term, you will get some results, and you can click them, and you will get a brief description. And to mention some examples, shown on the right is the search interface for the Avery Index. The Avery Index is maintained by the Avery Library at Columbia University. It's a specialized library for architecture, urban planning, and design, and it holds information about articles from over 1,000 professional journals in the field, which are indexed and annotated in this incredible index, where you can find practically anything that was ever written in a magazine or a journal about architecture, design, or urban planning. Other important library article indexes is the RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects Library Catalogue, which is also available online, or any host of databases available at your local university library. Please note that many of these indexes are based on subscription, means that you may not just be able to access them from anywhere. Ever so often you need to access them from within your campus network in order to be able to access them. This is because this is a business. So libraries typically subscribe to these indexes, and only so can they make them available to students and researchers and only on campus or using a VPN connection or as it is. Literature lists, as mentioned, is curated lists of literature typically made by instructors of courses in particular fields. And they are collections of references to selected subjects. As shown on the right, one very important and useful resource is the so-called MIT OpenCourseware. MIT University, or Massachusetts Institute of Technology, as it's called, some years back decided to make all their course material open source. So you can simply enter the MIT OpenCourseware, and once you found a course, the title of which sounds relevant to your topic, then you might look for readings for that particular course, and you will typically be presented with a list of relevant literature. So that's a very good entry point. Another example of literature lists is the archinform.net database, which holds information specifically on architectural and urban design works, which you can search and filter by location, by architect, by topic, etc., etc. So that's also a very good source, particularly I would say for images and other types of information than texts. Well, let's assume that now you've defined your topic, you have done your literature search, and now you have an endless list of results. Then, of course, you wanna weigh your list and say these books or articles are probably more relevant to me than others, and then you do a priority list, and then you start finding out how to retrieve the actual resources, because knowing that the text is out there obviously is not enough. You want to hold it in your hand or view it on your screen so that you can actually read it. So physical books and journals obviously must be retrieved in a physical library. Sometimes the book or the journal article that you want may not be available in your local library. That's very likely if it's a specialized topic. Then you can always ask your librarians to request it via so-called interlibrary loan. This means that the library will ask another library which has the item to either ship it for a given period of time, typically for books, or to scan a copy if it's a printed journal article, and then send this by email. And then you will actually either receive a physical book or journal, which you may keep for any period of time, or you will receive a scanned version of the physical material for yours to keep. So this is a brilliant service which you should not hesitate to make use of. Obviously, there will always also be ebooks and e-journals, which of course are in principle much more easy to get your hands on. Ebooks may sit in ebook publishing systems, and e-journals may be distributed via the particular journal websites. And just like with the article indexes, beware that some of these services are also commercial services, which are subscription services, meaning that you may only be able to retrieve the particular ebooks or e-journals that you're interested in from within your campus network. To mention some examples, obviously for physical libraries, there's your local university library, or the National Library, or any public library. For ebooks, you may look to services such as the so-called eBook Central, or any online journal. Most academic journals these days are online. Only a few of them, if any at all, are still exist in printed form, because journals are periodicals. They come ever so often, and researchers want to get hold on individual articles as fast as possible. So this is really much more convenient than distributing academic articles in printed form. And this, ladies and gentlemen, was all I had to tell you about literature searching. Thank you.